that sounded beautiful. So yes, so we struck off to Key West. So yeah.
And you came in June of 2017?
Yes. Yeah. It's been a little over 2 years now. I haven't left. That 4.5 months just keeps going.
Did you know anybody that lived here?
No.
No. You
No,
just
not a soul.
took a leap of faith.
Just took a leap of faith. Yep. I had no employment. I had a place rented for 4.5 months and I knew no one. So it's like, that sounds like a great plan. But it's a 2 by 4 mile island. It seemed easy and simple to navigate, and there's water all around. So and there's just something about the energy of the island. It calms my system down as soon as I step on it. You know, when I leave the island, I feel the difference. And when I'm here, it's just like this lovely, delightful blanket of feel good for me. So yes, I know.
Description. I like it. I thought of it as a blanket. I like that.
I know.
That's the key to the West.
That's right. The healing, you know, the sunsets, were known for our sunsets. And, you know, so the healing became going to the beach at night and just starting to try to take a photo and try to capture the beauty of the sunset, not just a picture, but the moment. A couple of weeks after we moved down here, my partner was diagnosed with cancer. And so my healing journey became our healing journey in very different ways. And, you know, there was not an expectation of death at that time, but 7 months later, they passed away. And so for me, trying to find that balance of healing from my own illness and helping to try to be a caretaker as well, and just capturing that moment of that sunset to share and try to express that moment became a big part. And I wasn't really on Facebook much at the time, but I started, I think it was September, October, a couple of years ago. Actually, it was after I had evacuated for Irma that I started posting pictures of the sunset because I missed the pictures and positive posts. And, you know, honestly, I think I was doing it more for myself at the time than anyone else. It made me look for something positive and try to go inside and find something positive to try to inspire and motivate others. But truly, at that point, I was the one who needed it. And it just became my thing. I started doing more and more with the photography and the positive posts. So, yeah.
This is a lot to deal with. You know, you have this illness, your partner passes, you have to deal with Irma and all this. Now, is there a point like saying, man, I can't do this. How do I get through this? There's no way. How do you push through all that?
Yeah, man. And that was the question I was asking myself. In January, when my partner passed, you know, my dream had been moving to an island. Here I was on this amazing island. I was probably about 60% recovered at the time, and I felt more lost than I've ever felt in my life. And there was a part of me that said, I don't even know if I want to move through this. I don't know if I want to make it. And it took a lot of work. I actually enlisted the help of a coach for myself to try to figure out how to get back on track. And I tell you what, it was my photography and it was the posts that kept me going then. Because by then people were starting to reach out to me and telling me how much it inspired them and how it was giving them hope and how they resonated with the photography, and they were starting to look for joy in their lives. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't go anywhere. I've got to keep doing this, you know? And it gave me something to hold on to. And then people started saying, you need to do something more with your photos. And it was interesting because they're all with my iPhone 7. You know, I had no intention. I'm like, they're just my photos. And they're like, no, they really speak to us. And, you know, you should do something with prints or maybe a book. Or, you know, a friend kept saying, I'm waiting for the coffee table book. I'm like, no, they aren't good enough. And, you know, some of those things we tell ourselves, who am I? I don't own a camera, you know. And it was that when my coach kept working with me with, well, what would you love? You know, what do you want? Not focusing on the story of what had happened. And I mean, because that could be enough to, you know, keep anybody down for a while, but, you know, not honoring those feelings, but allowing that grief to pass, allowing myself to even move through the feelings of how sick I was, but also hold on to that hope for the future and start designing and creating a new future for myself. And it was a process. And that's when, I started thinking more about, well, what could I do with my photography? And, is that a possibility? Which led to the eventual connection with the co-author who wrote the meditation for my first book, and us deciding to go ahead and see what it would look like if we did a book. So, and I tell you, something about that process just kept giving me hope, and it kept me going. So, yeah.
Creating is healing.
Creating is healing.
It really is.
Oh, when we're present, when I go to that spot, and this is where I also think about when we're intentional with our life. And it sounds it's kind of small, but sometimes when I work with my clients, it's like, okay, it's not really any different than when I want to go take a picture. Well, what do I want in my background of the picture? Do I want a horizon line? Okay, I go to this part of the island. How do I want maybe people in it? Okay, I go to this part. And we start getting really intentional about what would I like and how would I create that and how would I focus on it? Because even within a picture, you can frame it many different ways. And when we really look at how do I want to frame my life? How do I want to focus in on my life? Do you want to see more of just the open ocean? Do you want palm trees in your life? Do you want people in your life? And if you just shift your perspective a little, you can have those things. But sometimes we get stuck with, I don't know where to go. I only know to go to this one spot for a photo, and we get stuck when there's so many possibilities around there if we can just shift. And that's what I love about creativity. If we stop and we start kind of getting still and quiet, and we take some of those breaths and we calm our system down and we think, wow, what do I want to create? We're in that moment. And when we're in that present moment, it's harder to also be caught up in all that worry or fear or doubt. It's what do I want to create? So, yeah.
It helps you get a little unstuck.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a moment of peace, and calm and, expression. And, for some people, maybe it's creating something that's also an outlet for them for anger or depression, because they're now getting those feelings moving and expressing themselves in a way. So, creativity can take so many forms, but it's expression, at the basis of it. And how do we express? And if we're not expressing, we're getting a lot of energy stuck that's, leading to mental health or physical health or so many things that start going south quickly. So, yeah.
Very true.
Yeah.
Now, why photography? What was it about photography of all things? You mean you could have been writing about it, you could have been drawing, but what was it about photography?
Gosh, there's something to me about capturing a moment or a story and trying to share it. It's a funny story. I've always been intrigued by the photography, and I've had this desire to create a movie too. So there might be something coming with that sometime in the future.
Yeah.
And write a book. So I've got the two books, but the photography, even when I went back to school, I went back to a junior college. And I was sitting there at an enrollment. This was kind of, I won't date myself too much, but kind of old school, but they did have this TV up in a corner, and it had this advertisement for a photographer for the school newspaper. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that would be so cool. And so I went to where it was, and I said, I would like to apply. Okay, I'm not really thinking this out so well. And he was like, great, do you have a portfolio of your work? And I'm like, oh, I was like, I guess that would be helpful. So I said, no. And he was so kind. He said, just put together some pictures that you've done and, bring it in a book and I'll have a look. And so I found some of my pictures and I got the position.
Okay.
And it was amazing. Jean-Michel Cousteau, I got to take his picture. Gloria Steinem. There were some amazing people I got to connect with, and it was in that moment that it even shifted with what I like to do, and it was capturing not that I do it now, but capturing the expression of somebody, and not like just a smile, but how do you get to the essence of that person and be able to express it through a lens? And oh my gosh, it lit me up. I always had my camera, and I was always looking for that shot to try to share just a moment of somebody that spoke. So yeah. And, I think even with creativity, if we don't do photography, what about in life? We so quickly just kind of look at someone and don't pay attention to their essence. And, if we took it like, if I was coming from a photographer's eye, how would I see this person differently? Not that kind of projection they're putting up when they do that smile, but what's underneath it, if we connect and look a little deeper. So it's that connection for me. And how do we go deeper? And man, it's a skill and a way of life that could benefit all of us if we just tapped into that more versus just clicking a picture of a moment. Put that thought into it. What do you like about this moment? What do you notice around here? Where's the beauty in it that maybe if you were just to take a few seconds to stop and see, that you'd see something you never noticed before, and that's getting back into living life again.
Absolutely. I love when I can go someplace and then I see maybe a railing and I get real close to it. It's like you get an angle and you just get this shot like you never would have noticed it unless you really took a shot like, wow, that's from that fence or something, or even a lamppost, just from different angles. I love it.
Oh, I love that too. You love it also.
Yeah,
and it's so true. I'll have people walk by and they're like, what are you doing? Because I'm in some weird angles sometimes, and it's like, wow, I'm taking this picture of this, whatever it is, I'll share it. And they'll look and they'll kind of turn their head and you can just see them going, really? And I'm like, well, if you really look at it, and they're like, sometimes they're like, oh, that is beautiful. I would have never noticed. And sometimes they just move on, and that's okay too. So, or when I'm shooting a picture with my phone and somebody will walk by and they'll say, it's too bad you can't get a good picture with a camera or a phone camera. And I think, well, I might disagree with that. I have 2 best-selling books now from a phone camera. But I thought that's what we do in life. We put this glass and this lens on and this perspective on of what we can and we can't do, and we put those limitations in. And
you put them on others too.
Yes, so much. And what if we started getting more curious and getting into that artistic and that creative curiosity with life, and just said, what if I could do it a little differently and maybe draw this differently in my life? And it's in, that awareness. We've got to have that awareness. We're even doing it sometimes, and just stopping and just looking, what's working and what's not working. Okay, what else can I add in here? And for me, it was definitely tapping back into that creativity again. Oh, it opened it back up again.
All right, getting to the book.
Okay.
Your creativity led you to the book, You Are Loved, an inspired meditative visual journey. How did that come about?
Wow. It was, I say it was Cafe Con Leche and the 7 Mile Bridge. I really was being so nudged to do more with my photography. And there was a part of me that my confidence hadn't come back enough from being sick. So I wanted to really collaborate with somebody to create something. And so I kept putting, kind of little things out to people. Hey, I've got this idea. Would you like to create it? And I didn't even know what it was, but, I wanted to. And so finally, Kim O'Neill, who did the written meditation in this, said yes. And she actually was the one who came up with the idea of it being a meditative visual journey. We were just going to put in more like positive thoughts and quotes and small stories. And I mean, it just turned out to be such a beautiful collaboration and a beautiful idea. And she did an amazing written meditation through it that's just so simple, and it's paired with pictures. We put so much thought into the words that went with each picture on each page. I mean, it was quite an adventure. And we didn't know if we were going to actually do it at first. We did one of those little cheap book sites that you can upload your pictures, and she had a 50% off coupon. And so we said, well, let's just see what it looks like, no harm, no foul. And so our first book was actually created that way, and we got it. And it was the first time I'd seen my photos printed from my time living here.
Oh.
I hadn't seen them. And so here they come in this 8.5 by 11.5 picture. I'm